Hello everyone, hope you're having the most amazing day today. Welcome to the Film Insight channel. For today's video, we're going to discuss some more of the worst restaurants to be featured on Kitchen Nightmares and reveal how they're doing now. So, sit back, relax, and without further ado, let's get right into the content, guys. PJs Steakhouse. For a season 3 episode, Gordon Ramsay attempts to save a restaurant called PJs Steakhouse from closure. Owned by a married couple named Joe and Madeline, they opened the restaurant in the memory of Joe's brother, PJ. While it's very nice that they want to commemorate him, they have no culinary background whatsoever, having previously worked in the construction industry. Having invested over $2 million into the business, they've only lost money and are in a deep pool of debt. Not knowing how else to move forward, the couple decides to call out to Ramsay for some guidance. Upon his eventual arrival, Ramsay is unimpressed to see that no one is there to greet him and that the place is a ghost town. After finally meeting with Joe, the famous chef scans the menu and is perplexed that they only have 2 types of steaks, which is very low for a steakhouse. Ordering some crab cakes that were rancid, shrimp and roasted garlic ravioli that tasted nasty, and filet mignon that was tough, Ramsay was left feeling disappointed. Heading into the Kitchen Nightmares host tells the chef Eric that his meal was awful, which causes the staff to get into an argument. They seem to blame one another for the issues with the food, but Joe comes clean and admits that it's his fault since he's given up. Ramsay highlights that he'll need to step up and take charge of his staff for the restaurant to succeed, which he completely agrees with. Later on, Ramsay meets with Joe's wife, who explains that the restaurant only makes $4,000 a week, which is nowhere close to enough since they need to make $17,000 to break even. To keep the restaurant afloat, the couple was forced to sell their dream home and invest the rest of their money into the business. Following this conversation, Ramsay attempts to observe the dinner service, which didn't go so well to say the very least. Not only did the kitchen quickly get overwhelmed, but the food was sent out at a sluggish pace and was sent right back. What's more, when the famous chef takes a look at the walk-in, he finds tons of moldy and rotten food. Once the piss-poor service was over and done with, Ramsay showed the staff the state of the fridge and forced them to throw out the spoiled food. The following day, the Kitchen Nightmares host introduces some new specials that will be added to the menu for the upcoming service. Unfortunately, since Eric was colossally incompetent, he was incapable of following Ramsay's recipes and left mid-service out of frustration. It was clear that Eric was a weakling to the restaurant, so Ramsay advises that they fire him and promises that he'll hire a new chef for them. Fast forward to the end of the episode. After Ramsay redecorated the dining room, updated the menu, and hired some highly skilled staff members, the restaurant's future was looking bright. Weeks after the taping of this episode, the restaurant's sales had certainly improved, but this wasn't enough to keep them afloat. Sadly, since they weren't getting close to the required $17,000 a week to break even and had insanely high debts, they shut down in May of 2010. Consequently, both Joe and Madeline decided to return to their previous careers in the construction business. In the place of PJs Steakhouse, a restaurant called Manor Oktoberfest opened up, which has solid reviews. Kingston Cafe. In a season 4 episode, Gordon Ramsay pays a visit to the failing Kingston Cafe to bring it back on its feet. Owned by a radiologist/Olympic athlete named Una Morris, she opened the restaurant back in 1992 since she had a strong passion for cooking. Hiring her son Keon to be the restaurant's manager, she oddly doesn't listen to his suggestions on how to run the restaurant. What's more, Morris micromanages every aspect of her business, and this often leads to food being sent out at a sluggish pace. Considering the fact that the restaurant only serves 5 or so patrons a day and that Una has spent all of her retirement money to support the business, she called out to Ramsay for some help. Instead of going straight to Kingston Cafe, the famous chef meets with Keon, who reveals that his mother's management style is the biggest issue. Heading over to the place soon after, Ramsay points out that the exterior looks more like a home than an actual restaurant. Greeted by Una upon entering, she expresses that she does everything at the restaurant, including designing the menu. Sitting down to order some food, Ramsay scans the odd-looking menu and orders a collection of staple Jamaican dishes. As expected, everything he received was either really dry and overcooked or simply tasted dreadful. Meeting with the staff to give them his feedback, the Kitchen Nightmares host says that the dining room is depressing, the food is soulless, and his experience was awful. Being completely honest, the owner's son tries to tell Ramsay that he thinks the food should be cooked from fresh, but Una cuts him off. According to the owner, jerk chicken is meant to be dry since that's how they make it in Jamaica, which is true, but Ramsay highlights that it was so dry that it was practically inedible. Returning later on for the dinner service, Ramsay is completely shocked with what he witnesses. As orders pour in, complimentary salads are sent out in martini glasses, which leaves Ramsay and the customers feeling perplexed. While all of this is unfolding, Ramsay decides to take a look at the fridge and notices that all the food is frozen and bagged. Paying Una a visit soon after at her medical practice, the Kitchen Nightmares host highlights that she needs to make big changes if she wants to succeed. Touched by his words, the owner admits that she's put her last $300,000 into the business and can only keep it open for another month. After a tearful conversation with Una, Ramsay has a chat with Keon and highlights that he needs to help his mother out since she has a lot on her plate, which he agrees with. Now that both of the key players at the restaurant agreed to change, Ramsay hoped to introduce some new specials for the upcoming service. Overall, the patrons were in love with the specials added, but hated all the items on the original menu since they continued to use frozen garbage. Following the dinner service, Ramsay gathers the staff and dumps all of the food-filled bags on the floor, letting them know that it's time to move forward. While Una was very disappointed to have to waste so much food, she decides to trust the famous chef and goes along with the changes. Working overnight with his team, Ramsay transformed the restaurant's interior and even upgraded the exterior by giving it a new sign. Everything on the old menu was replaced with fresh Jamaican dishes and the staff was given casual-looking uniforms. Post-kitchen nightmares, Una decided to put the past behind her and fired most of her staff, replacing them with new ones. A year after the rescue had taken place, Ramsay decided to revisit and was impressed with the drastic improvements. After temporarily closing down and reopening back in November of 2013, the business lasted for a couple more years but finally shut down in August of 2018. Nowadays, Keon works in a completely different industry, putting most of his focus into branding and marketing. Lilas. As our final entry, we're going to discuss a restaurant that Gordon Ramsay tried to rescue called Lilas. Owned by Lela Guilin, she opened the restaurant 8 months prior to the taping of this episode, but it's already on the verge of closure. Investing most of her savings to fund the restaurant, Guilin owes well over $100,000. What's more, she has a lot of problems with her staff, but most notably Tabitha and Ricky, who frequently argue in front of customers. Desperately needing some guidance before the business crashes and burns, Guilin calls out to Ramsay for some aid. Upon his eventual arrival, Ramsay compares the area to a ghost town and notices that the restaurant is just as empty. Finally entering, the famous chef is impressed by how clean the place is, but is embarrassed to see spelling mistakes on their menu. Ordering a couple of dishes to test the food, Ramsay is completely disappointed and can tell that it's all pre-made. This is later confirmed by Tabitha, who explains that practically everything on the menu is frozen, leaving Ramsay feeling disappointed. Luckily, they do make one thing from scratch, being brownies, so Ramsay decides to order some. Unsurprisingly, Tabitha gets into an argument with the chef Ricky since they don't have the necessary ingredients to make any. Leaving and returning the following day, Ramsay decides to inspect the kitchen and is appalled with what he finds. Aside from the fact that the walk-in wasn't cold and smelled awful, the fridge wasn't working properly, so all the produce had gone bad. Disgusted with what he had found, the Kitchen Nightmares host forced the staff to deep clean the area before he could move forward. Once they were done, Ramsay attempted to observe the dinner service, which was busier than usual since there was a theater performance nearby. Overall, it was a complete and utter disaster since the kitchen ran out of ingredients for many of the dishes on the menu and sent out powdered mashed potatoes. Supposedly, the owner wasn't even aware that they used pre-made mash and admitted that her staff was lazy. After getting the staff on the same page, revamping the menu, and giving the dining room a complete makeover, Lela's was given the second chance it needed. Post-Kitchen Nightmares, both Ricky and Tabitha excelled and were able to get along for the sake of the business. Although since the restaurant's debts were way too high, Lela's was forced to shut things down soon after being rescued. Currently speaking, a restaurant called Aladdin Jr. Restaurant and Cafe opened up in its place, which has good reviews. Well, that'll be all for today's video here on the channel. I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to drop a massive like down below and comment your thoughts. Subscribe for more content like this and turn on those sweet bell notifications for instant access to our content. Have a good one, guys.